Good evening to one and all. Welcome you all to the Daily Indian Express newspaper analysis for the date 1st April 2024, brought to you by Ganesh IAS Academy. Okay, let's get into the today's newspaper analysis. Mentioned here are the list of articles which we are going to have the analysis in the upcoming slides. So have a look into it. Okay, let's analyze every article one by one. So the first news is a century later, remembering the VAIKOM SATYAGRAHA. So this is the 100th year of VAIKOM SATYAGRAHA, which is very important from the perspective of prelims. Why? Because generally there is a trend in the prelims is that whenever there is an event that is related to centenary celebration, there is a chance that the event or the information related to the event might be asked. So from that perspective, this news is very important. Okay, let's look into the historical evolution of the VAIKOM SATYAGRAHA. Before that, let's look into the linkage of the news with the examination. Under prelims, the news is related to history of India as well as Indian national movement. Similarly, under mains, it has been related with GS paper 1 through a subtopic called modern Indian history from about middle 18th century until the present, significant events, personalities as well as the issues. So through these topics only the news has been related with. Let's look into the further analysis of the news. VAIKOM, a temple town in the princely state of Travancore, saw the state of non-violent agitation on March 30, 1924. So it is the first temple entry movement in India. So this is what the significance of it. So early 20th century's Travancore. So what is the condition of Travancore during the earlier 20th century period? The Travancore had a feudal, militaristic as well as the ruthlessness system of custom-ridden government. The second half of the 19th century CE, however, saw some major changes. That is, the Christian missionaries they have converted the many lower caste Hindus. And Maharaja Ailiam Tirunal Ramavarma's reign, which ranged from 1960 to 1980, saw the progressive reforms such as universal free primary education, including for the lower caste. So these are all the changes that began to occur during the earliest period of 19th century. By early 20th century, among the caste Hindus, Christian and even Avarna, who is the lower caste, a significant educated elite has increased from this section of community. Iravas in particular emerged as the most educated as well as the most organized, untouchable community in the Travancore. But the government was still reserved or being dominated by the upper caste people, and also the ritual discrimination still persisted during this period of time, and it very often overrode the other material as well as the educational progress that has been made by other communities. There are times when even though the Irava community has attained the economic superiority, they have to walk through the road rather than riding their automobile vehicles when they are passing through the street or the road where the upper caste people were living. So such a kind of the thing that was prevailing during the early 20th century period in Travancore. So what is the road to agitation? So the issue of the temple entry was first raised by Irava leader T.K. Madhavan in 1970 in an editorial in his newspaper called Desa Bhimani. By 1920, it has been inspired by the Mahatma Gandhi's non-cooperation. He began to advocate for direct methods, himself crossing the restrictive notice boards that has been placed on certain roads as well as certain other places like temples, etc. However, caste Hindus counter agitation stalled any further progress that has been made by T.K. Madhavan as well as his followers. With the Maharaja also shying away from enacting any kind of progressive reforms because of the counter agitation that has been made by the upper caste people. In 1921, the Madhavan met the Gandhi and secured his support for mass agitation to enter the temples. On the backdrop of it, several supporters as well as the people from other communities gathered and they gave their support to the T.K. Madhavan, as a result of which this temple entry movement gathered momentum. So in 1923, in the session of INC, that is Indian National Congress session in Kakinada, a resolution has been passed by Kerala Provincial Congress Committee to take up the anti-untouchability as the key issue in the matter. So VAIKOM with its revered Shiva temple was chosen as the location for the very first Satyagraha. So that is the reason why it has been named as VAIKOM Satyagraha. So 600-day Satyagraha. Madhavan as well as the other leaders took decision to open the 4 roads around the temples for all the communities. So these 4 roads could be used by people from other community freely without any kind of the caste related restrictions. So initially they are demanding for the open usage of the free space in the 4 roads by the common people rather than the temples during the initial period of time, during the initial period of the movement. So on March 30, 1924, Nair, Irava as well as Pulayu dressed in Kadar uniforms and garlanded and as they have been followed by thousands of the followers to use the roads. The next day they were forbidden as well as arrested by the government officials. The next morning, the next day of the day when these people were arrested, another 3 men entered the road and they are also been quoted to arrest. So this is what the situation that was prevailing during the struggle of the VAIKOM Satyagraha. From then through September of that year, the protests in the form of barricades, fasting, singing patriotic songs were taking place in the different parts of Travancore. Leaders like PERA, C. Rajagopalachari also came to VAIKOM to offer support and lead the protesters. And at the same time, the counter agitations also raged on, and their support also been gathering momentum from the other like-minded upper caste people. In the August 1924, the Travancore Maharaja died, following which the young Queen Sethu Bai has took over the responsibility. She has released all the prisoners, but she still refused to open up the temple for the other communities. So in March 1925, Gandhi finally ironed out a compromise. That is, 3 out of the 4 roads will be opened for the other community people, which was not accepted by Tandai Periyar as well as the other leaders, those who are demanding for all the 4 roads need to be used by the other community peoples. And this was implemented later that year with the last Satyagrahi that has been called from the VAIKOM in the November 23. So legacy and the aftermath. So what legacy the VAIKOM Satyagraha hold and what is the aftermath of it? See, the VAIKOM Satyagraha sustained for 600 days, which is nearly 1.5 years, braving the hostile social forces, police crackdown, and one of the worst flood that occurred during that time in the VAIKOM in 1924. So the Satyagraha also saw unity across various caste lines, but the compromise that has been reached by Gandhi with the other Travancore leaders has been disappointed by other leaders like Periyar, as I said, because of the partial goal that has been reached through the compromise rather than achieving the full goal. In November 1936, the Maharaja of Travancore signed the historic temple entry proclamation for the first time in the history, which has been opening up the gateway for the temples to the lower caste people. And because of this movement, the untouchability as well as unapproachability as well as the unseeability, these are all the issues that has been taken up as the national as well as the state level issues. And in the aftermath of this incident, most of the INC's committees as well as the resolutions have touched the problems that has been related to untouchability, unseeability as well as unapproachability. So this is what the legacy as well as the aftermath of the VAIKOM Satyagraha is about. So what need to be studied apart from the news which we have seen in the previous slides is we should be aware of what are all the other Satyagrahas that were happening during this period of time. Secondly, we should also be aware of the fundamental rights as well as the DPSP, more specifically the provisions that has been related to social equity as well as the abolishing untouchability. Thirdly, we should also be aware of National Commission for Scheduled Caste as well as the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. India's trade reliance on China and other European Union countries are rising according to the United Nations Trade Body. So this is what the news is about. Let's look into the linkage of the news with the examination. Under prelims, the news has been related with economic and social development. Similarly, under mains, it has been related with GS paper 3, economic development through a subtopic called Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development and employment. So this is how the news has been related with the examination. Okay, let's look into the details of the news. India's trade reliance on China as well as the European Union is rising. This is despite the fact that there is a global shift in the geopolitical trade because of the happenings of things like COVID pandemic and also the Russian-Ukraine war. This is as I said, this is in the background of the supply chain reset that has been following the COVID pandemic and the Russian-Ukraine war. India's dependence on China as well as the European Union has grown by 1.2%, while its reliance on Saudi Arabia has been reduced by 0.6%. This comes despite India's effort to cut down the reliance on China by implementing its national flagship initiatives like the production linked incentive scheme as well as the quality control orders to limit the entry of cheap Chinese products. So this is what the news is about, and this is what the backdrop on which the news has occurred. So let's look into further details of the news. So let's look into the production linked incentive scheme. What does it means? It is a form of performance linked incentive to companies that has been given to companies in the incremental sales from the products that has been manufactured by them. It is aimed at boosting the manufacturing sectors and to cut down the imports that has been happening from the other countries, more importantly China. These schemes have the potential of significantly boosting production, employment as well as the economic growth over the next 5 to 6 years. The schemes are performance based because the incentives will be given based upon the amount of products that has been produced as a result of the manufacturing process, and they have the graded incentive structure, that is for a particular percentage of production, particular percentage of incentive will be given. Similarly, for the increased amount of production, the increased amount of incentives will be given. This is the reason why it has been called as graded incentive structure. They are valid for the period of 5 to 6 years depending on the sectors, and the schemes are flexible. Why? Because they allow the manufacturers to choose their own base year for calculating the incentives as well as their production and investment plan and production targets within the prescribed guidelines. So this is what the features with regards to the production linked incentive scheme is about. Let's look into what does this quality control order is. See, the quality control orders are regulatory measures that has been introduced by government to establish quality standards for specific products or the product categories. These orders are designed to ensure that the products meet certain standards like quality, safety as well as the performance requirement before they are manufactured or imported from the other countries. And the main objective of this is to maintain or reduce the import of substandard products or the cheap products with lesser productivity, so that which in turn will be indirectly cutting down the most of the products that has been imported illegally or legally from China. So what is the impact does the Indian economy will have by relying more on the China in terms of trade? First is the widening trade deficit, so which in turn will be leading to increased current account deficit, thereby increasing the debt for India, which in turn will be leading to increased interest payment. So the cycle will be moving on. Secondly, it will have impact on MSMEs in India. So MSMEs, which acts as the backbone for the Indian economy, will be is heavily affected because of the import of the cheap products that has been imported from China. So thirdly, our strategic autonomy in terms of decision making will get impacted because of high reliance on the China with regards to the trade. So these are all the impacts it will be creating India's increased dependence on China in terms of trade. So what need to be studied further is we should be aware of India-US relationship and United Nations organization and its sub-organization framework. Thirdly, we should also be aware of IMF, World Bank and its structure, function as well as objective. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. In Kerala, education surged 67% in 2 years, which 7.2% of these loans are NPA. So this is what the news is about. Let's look into the further details of the news. Before that, let's look into the linkage of the news with the examination. Under prelims, the news has been related with economic and social development, sustainable development, poverty, inclusion, demographics as well as the social sector initiatives. So this is how the news has been related with examination. Similarly, under mains, it has been related with Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development and employment, which comes in the GS paper 3 through a major topic called economic and development. So this is what the linkage of the news with the examination is about. Increased demand from students to countries like US, Canada, Australia for higher education loans has increased because of the rising demand. Simultaneously, it also increased the NPA in this loan segment. Education loans in Kerala have surged in size by almost 67% in the last few years. Kerala accounts for overall 12% of the overall education loan portfolios or the credit that has been given by Indian banks. Bad loans in the education sectors are almost twice of the overall banking credit average. On the other hand, overall banking sectors whose gross non-performing asset continued to decline to a multi-year low of 3.2% and the net non-performing assets also continue to decline by 0.8% in the 2023. So private sectors have suffered 13.18% of NPA out of their overall educational portfolio in terms of the education loan that has been turning out to the NPA. The PSUs also suffered a percentage of 5.81 out of their overall education portfolio. So this is what the scenario with regards to the education portfolio or the loan that has been given by the bank to the students in Kerala. Let's look into what is this non-performing asset is. So NPA is a loan or the advance for which the principal or the interest payment remained overdue for the period of 90 days or above. For a bank, a loan is the asset. Why? Because it will be earning interest in the interest amount periodically. So, and this interest amount occupies the huge chunks in terms of the earnings that has been raised by banks. NPAs are classified into 3 types, that is substandard asset, doubtful asset as well as loss asset. So if a particular NPA or the non-performing asset remains non-performing assets for the period of 90 days or more means, then that asset will be converted into substandard asset. Similarly, if an asset remains substandard asset for the period of 90 days or more means, then it will be converted into doubtful asset. Similarly, if asset remains doubtful for the period of 90 days or more than the 90 days means, it will be called as loss asset. So this is what the classification of non-performing asset is. So what impact the NPA in education sectors will be creating to the students? First and foremost, it will be slowing down the lending by the banks because of the increased risk weight asset because of the increased bad loans that has been arising in the education sectors. As a result of which, the future students, those who are trying to avail the education loan, will be finding it hard to avail the loan from the banking sector. Secondly, it will increase the interest rate. So because of increased risk in particular sector for in terms of loan means similar, then the interest rate of those loan segment will get increased, as a result of which students will again need to pay back more, for which along with the principal, the interest rate that will be paid by the students in the future date will be higher when compared to the students that have those who are repaying the interest rate in the current time. Thirdly, increased demand for education in domestic institution will be higher because of the lesser opportunities or the lesser credit that has been availed by the students from the banks in the future course of time. So these are all the impacts the NPA will be creating in the education sectors. So what need to be studied for this? We should be aware of insolvency, bankruptcy code. Secondly, we should also be aware of Sarfasi Act. Thirdly, we should also be aware of Mission Indradhanush and why it has been implemented and what are all the things that has been implemented underneath it. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. GI tag for Tripura's MATABARI PERA handwoven cloth PACHRA. So these are all the things. So MATABARI PERA as well as the handwoven cloth PACHRA are the two things that have got the GI tag from Tripura. So what does this MATABARI PERA is? What does this PACHRA is about? Let's look into while we are looking into the previous upcoming slides. Before that, let's look into the linkage of the news with the examination. Under prelims, the news is related to current events of national as well as international importance. Similarly, under mains, it has been related with awareness in the field of IT, space, computers, robotics, nanotech, biotech, and issues relating to IPR. So this is how the news has been related with examination. So MATABARI PERA, a confectionery item traditionally been offered as prasad at the Tripura Sundari temple in Tripura, Gomadi district, was given the GI tag. PACHRA, which is the hand-woven cloth used by the state indigenous committee, indigenous communities were also been given GI tag. So this is what the reason why it appeared in newspaper. Let's look into the speciality or the characteristic of the individual aspect. First is MATABARI PERA. It is a sweet that has been offered at the renowned Tripureshwari temple in Tripura and which is made from milk sugar, and this delicacy is famous for its distinctive taste as well as the deep-rooted cultural tradition. And with the increasing demand for the PIDA among the locals as well as the visitors, companies have started marketing the products to the customers worldwide. So this is what the speciality about it. And Rignai PACHRA textile. What does it mean? Rignai PACHRA is the traditionally hand-woven cloth or the attire that has been crafted by the skilled artisan using the indigenous materials as well as the techniques. Secondly, this garment holds the symbolic value within the Tripura cultural tapestry. And the Ringna PACHRA has gotten significant interest among the urban dwellers, as particularly in metropolitan area, for its traditional allure. So this is what the speciality with regards to the cloth is about, which has been traditionally or which has been made using the traditional materials as well as the traditional techniques by the indigenous community of Tripura. Let's look into what is this GI tag is about. A GI tag is a sign used on products with specific geographical origin, possessing unique qualities or reputation due to that origin. It serves as an intellectual property right and attributing the product quality, reputation or other characteristics which is specific to the its geographic origin. Thirdly, GI are recognized as an IPR under Paris Convention for Protection of Industrial Property as well as the TRIPS, Trade Related Intellectual Property Property Rights Agreement. So what are the benefit it has? So firstly, it will ensure legal protection for the products that has been given as GI tag. No one could use no other person or the people or the other stakeholders from the outside of the geographical location can use this tag for their own purpose. Secondly, it will give exclusive right to the people or the community from those geographical location to use these products to market these products according to their requirement. Thirdly, it will ensure the ability to prevent any kind of malice or the duplication in terms of the product in the local market, and legal recourse in case of any duplication that has been made by the peoples or the stakeholders those are present outside the geographical location of the particular product. So this is what the benefit it holds. What are the things which we needed to be further aware of is we should be aware of World Trade Organization, India's IPR policy, and World Intellectual Property Organization, its structure, function as well as objective under which it has been formed. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. Let's look into today's practice prelims question. Mentioned here is the today's practice prelims question. So those students, those who are watching this session online, please do comment the option point for the question which you are seeing right now on the board. So with this, we have reached the end of today's session. So please do like, comment, share as well as subscribe Ganesh IAS YouTube channel so that you will be receiving daily current affairs session and also weekly environmental as well as science and tech current affairs session and also any other session that will be related to the UPSC exam that will be brought to you in the future by Ganesh IAS Academy. Thank you.